The Sun Prince, revered by all humans, unexpectedly fell in love with the girl offered to him as a sacrifice. He secretly imprisoned her in the celestial palace, constantly showering her with kisses and hugs to show his affection. All because an ancient prophecy circulated in the Bovius Empire. The Sun Prince would meet a human girl immune to fire, and together they would give birth to an all-powerful deity. Thus, every sun festival, a young maiden was offered as tribute to the three sons of the sun god. Because of this absurd prophecy, every female sacrifice was burned to death on the festival day, and Lysiana was one of this year's offerings. She never imagined that her half-sister Gladia would force a potion down her throat and send her off to die happily. After drinking the magic elixir, Lysiana's vocal cords were damaged, leaving her unable to speak. Her whole body felt as if it were burning alive. In despair and helplessness, she could only watch as her golden hair was dyed into a vivid crimson. And this was exactly what her sister Gladia wanted. With Lysiana's hair dyed red, the two of them now looked identical. Lysiana watched her sister's departing figure, but her foolish pleas were useless. She was dragged away by the maids. She would replace her cruel sister and become the Sun Prince's sacrifice. When the Sun Festival finally arrived, Lysiana, as the offering, was brought to the altar. Seeing everything before her, the fear of being consumed by fire surged through her heart. Tears streamed down like rain. The crowd tightened their fists in excitement, shouting eagerly, desperate for the ritual to begin. At that moment, her father, the high priest, stepped forward amid the roaring cheers. "I hereby offer my beloved eldest daughter Gladia to the son of the sun." His voice was heavy and solemn as he shed insincere, cheaply performed tears. Seeing this, Lysiana foolishly believed he might spare her life. She stared hard at the man on the platform, and thus did not miss the emotionless look in his eyes. The man on the platform continued his performance of righteous impartiality, activating the sacrificial ritual without hesitation. At that moment, Lysiana fell into utter despair. She forced her stiffened tongue to shout, "I am Lysiana, not Gladia." But no miracle happened. Her drug-damaged throat produced only a harsh scraping sound. Soon the flames surged upward, their fiery tongues licking across Lysiana's body. Her lips parted in a silent scream. "Someone, please save me." Elsewhere, Orescio, the third son of the sun god, was lounging on a cold marble bed, leisurely lifting his fourth glass of wine. His peace was broken by the anxious spiral of thoughts coming from his servant, Gino. "You're annoying me, Gino. Did you forget I can read minds? Stop complaining." At once, Gino begged for mercy. "Your Highness, please forgive me. The Sun Festival is about to start. If you miss it again, His Majesty will have my head. Don't worry that I can kill you before Father does. Honestly, I'd even make it quick and painless." Hearing this, Gino burst into tears. "Your Highness, I might resurrect, but it hurts every single time." Yet Orescio never attended the Sun Festival, because he hated the cruel sacrificial rituals. But Gino cried out through watery eyes, "Your Highness, if you skip the offering again, His Majesty will summon you, and I'll be thrown into an endless abyss. Is that what you want?" Hearing his pitiful plea, Orescio suddenly lost all interest in his wine. He stood up and said, "If this is truly Father's will, then I'll walk into this trap, just this once." Gino went to report to the king that it was the first time, and it would be the last. As a gentle breeze brushed past, Orescio's face began to glow. In a flash, he appeared at the altar, hearing the surrounding human women swooning over him. He regretted it instantly. He should have waited until the flames were gone. But seeing the girl engulfed in blazing fire, he couldn't help descending from the sky. He walked up to Lysiana, his strange eyes locking directly onto her face. He spoke calmly, "Your name is Gladia, isn't it? You must possess some divine power. Otherwise you'd be dead already. Unfortunately, I have no interest in accepting such traps." Hearing this, Lysiana gathered every ounce of strength she had, her lips trembling as she tried to shout, "Bastard, no, she's not Gladia." Yet no sound came out. Seeing this, Orescio did something completely out of character and took the girl back to the celestial palace. When Gino heard the news, he nearly tore his hair out, shouting, "Your Highness, how could you bring a human girl into the celestial palace? What were you thinking?" But Horatio remained unfazed, simply saying, I saved her because there are things I need to confirm. Hearing this, Gino was completely lost, nearly in tears. Why should I waste divine power to save an insignificant human? And your highness brought a hostage back to the celestial palace without permission. This is serious. You could even be put on trial. At those words, Horatio let out a sudden cold laugh. A trial? Not impossible, I suppose. Your highness, Gino murmured weakly. Then it hit him. No one in existence dared to judge Horatio, not even his father, Saruman, the sun god. Because Horatio was the only judge of the celestial palace. Gino instantly shut his mouth and hurried to pull open the curtains, checking the girl's injuries. One glance made him cry out, unbelievable! She was seconds away from turning into ashes. He then reached out his short, chubby fingers to heal her. Soon, blue light seeped into every corner of the girl's body, and warm steam escaped from between her tightly closed lips. As the healing finished, Luciana's red hair slowly faded, and in an instant her true appearance returned. Soft, pale gold hair spread across the bed. Exhausted from spending so much divine power, Gino wiped his sweat and said, Your Highness, she'll need time before regaining consciousness. Please confirm what you want to know and then, before her human scent fills the entire palace, eliminate her. But Horatio ignored Gino completely, simply staring thoughtfully at the golden-haired girl before him. What secret is she hiding? Looking at the girl whose appearance had finally returned to normal, he realized for the first time ever, his mind reading had failed. At that moment, a foreign presence entered the palace and Horatio's gaze turned icy. Feeling the sudden shift in his aura, Gino quickly raised a black curtain around the girl, hiding her from sight. Soon, an envoy from the palace arrived, bowing deeply. Your Highness, I have brought a gift from the Queen. She is delighted to hear you'll attend the Sun Festival for the first time. Horatio gave a faint smile. A gift, you say? As soon as he spoke, the ground beneath the envoy grew scorching hot, and blue flames engulfed him. Enduring the burning pain, he gasped out, I came by order of the Queen. You cannot treat me like this. It's tradition. Tradition. Horatio sneered. Humph. The weather is lovely today. Surely, you don't want this to be your last day. Unable to withstand the agony, the envoy screamed, it burns. Everyone out, get out now. And with that, he collapsed to the floor with a heavy thud. The palace maids shrieked and fled in panic. Beside him, Gino trembled uncontrollably. Your Highness, you really chased everyone out. The Queen and the Pyros family will never forgive you. It doesn't matter that I only want a life free from royal interference. Of course, Your Highness. Gino fawned immediately, but still. Since you attended the Sun Festival, it's time for you to lose your virgin, YW. Before he could finish, Gino was launched across the room. Horatio then instructed the maids calmly, notify me when the girl wakes. Meanwhile, Luciana was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't distinguish from reality, running desperately, pleading, someone, please save me. But a wicked hand seized her hair. Trying to run, you little rat. A cruel male voice dragged her toward a dark corner despite the watching crowd. Luciana, no matter what, you must survive. Her mother's final words echoed through her mind. With the last of her strength, the girl pushed the villain away. Just then, commotion rose in the distance. The goddess Gladia is here. People rushed toward her. Every year before the Sun Festival, the goddess chose among the orphans. If lucky, a child might even become a goddess candidate. These are the children you gathered, yes? As that clear voice sounded above Luciana, she stood up in despair, meeting the goddess's gaze, revealing her curse-marked wrist. And she shouted, Honorable Goddess Gladia, if you can hear me, please take me out of this hell. After that, Luciana was placed in a temple where she ate, slept, and washed. The priestesses who disliked her murmured ancient language prayers. I'll never understand why Gladia keeps bringing these beggars here. Filthy, lowly things. Careful. You don't understand, Gladia. Before the Sun Festival sacrifice, you must do good deeds. The sun god blesses the kind. They whispered among themselves, assuming the orphans couldn't understand the ancient tongue. But Luciana understood perfectly. Her mother had spoken the old language. While brushing her hair, Luciana thought sadly, I truly feel sorry for the greatness of Goddess Gladia. She'll soon offer herself to the sun god to protect everyone that she's so kind. She even saved me. She is the first goddess of the Iradigo Empire, keeper of the eternal sacred flame, able to create fire with her divine power. That day, Lixiana prayed devoutly as always. Almighty Sun God, thank you for granting me a peaceful life. As she gazed at the brilliant sunlight, a priestess entered the room. I'm here to take you to the esteemed high priest Eunuchus. But before that, your hair color must be changed. Soon, a confused Lixiana had been fully dressed and prepared, following the priestesses on the path to the high priest's palace. Looking at her reflection on the polished floor, an absurd thought popped into her mind. I look like Gladia. The thought alone made Lixiana's face flush crimson. She lowered her head. Why would I even think something like that? Suddenly, a sharp voice echoed through the hall. Honored High Priest Eunuchus, Goddess Gladia requests an audience. Lixiana's pupils shrank instantly, and her veil was lifted without warning. Eunuchus, who had just finished the sacrificial rite, was rinsing his hands with clear water. Gladia, why are you here at this hour? Hearing him call her Gladia, Lixiana began trembling uncontrollably. A heavy dread rose in her small body. I'm sorry, I actually... At that moment another Gladia appeared. Father, I'm right here. Eunuchus froze. Then, that girl isn't you, Gladia? Gladia's laughter grew sharper. Perfect, isn't it, Father? I've been searching everywhere for this little thing. Eunuchus looked utterly confused. What is the meaning of this, Gladia? Gladia grabbed Lixiana's wrist roughly. Look. Just as Mother foretold. The Mando's family crest, along with the cursed markings, is branded onto her body. With that, Eunuchus finally understood. Gladia, you realize this was a mistake. He tried to deny it, yet a burning tear slid down from the corner of his eye. Gladia's gentle yet dangerous voice rose again. Lixiana, what do you think? Can't you see how similar we are? I heard your mother was a direct priestess of the sun god. They say she had pale golden hair, a natural charm that could captivate every man in the nation. Isn't that right, Father? Enough, Gladia. Stop tormenting me with this. Eunuchus barked in the ancient tongue. Your own life is hanging by a thread. Gladia, unfazed, replied softly in the same tongue. But tomorrow, she will take my place at the Sun Festival. Lixiana's heart clenched violently at those words. The altar. If I remember correctly, that's where they sacrifice humans to the sun god. Tears poured down her cheeks. She grabbed Gladia's sleeve, pleading, Please, spare me. I'll do anything, goddess, I don't want to die. Gladia paused, briefly startled. Then, staring at Lixiana's desperate sobbing face, she said coldly, So you can understand the ancient tongue. Clever girl. But don't forget your place. You were born to die in my stead. Elsewhere, Orescio watched Lixiana crying even in her sleep, and a strange ache stirred in his chest. He instinctively tightened his hold on her wrist, pulling her directly into his arms, studying her delicate features. He couldn't help but think, for a human, her pale golden hair suits her almost too well. Lixiana was still trapped in her nightmare. The fear of being devoured by flames, along with the pressure on her wrist, made her believe her hand was burning again. She jolted awake. But the blinding light kept her eyes from focusing. She could only make out a vague silhouette. Who? Her cracked voice barely escaped her throat. Orescio paused, startled. With a flick of his hand, he summoned a golden cup with divine power. He gently tilted the holy water toward her dry lips, as if watering a wilted flower. But Lixiana's expression twisted in terror. Memories flashed, of priestesses forcing potions down her throat, ruining her voice. She didn't want to relive that nightmare. She clamped her lips shut, jaw trembling yet firm. Then suddenly slapped the holy water away. Seeing this, Orescio pinned her back down on the bed, his voice icy. You must drink it. Otherwise the sunlight will dry you out until you die. No, I don't want it. Ignoring her refusal, Orescio summoned a second cup of holy water. Then, like pinning down a small prey, he pressed firmly against her back, forcing the cup toward her lips. But she still refused to open her mouth, struggling wildly as if losing her mind. She knocked the holy water away again. Orescio watched the girl, trembling and crying just to avoid drinking it. The holy water soaked her clothes and he suddenly chuckled. You're amusing. but you're starting to trouble me. Don't resist your good fortune." With that, he brought the holy water to his own mouth instead. Then he gripped her small chin, leaned down, pressing his lips to hers. A strange, delicate sensation spread across Luciana's mouth. She didn't know how long it lasted. Her body had gone rigid by the time Horatio finally finished giving her the holy water. Suddenly, her vision brightened. She could finally see the man before her, so breathtakingly beautiful that words felt inadequate. Her eyes widened in disbelief, her face flushing scarlet. She whispered instinctively, "Who are you?" Horatio smiled warmly, almost delighted. "You don't recognize me? How disappointing, human girl." Luciana stared at his radiant smile, utterly bewildered. Seeing her reaction, Horatio leaned in and whispered, "I'm the bastard you were looking for." At those words, her heart lurched. She remembered the man she saw right before dying. Her face instantly turned ghost white. But then a thought struck her and she asked in a trembling voice, Does that mean I'm still alive?" Horatio stared straight at her. "I can't say you're alive, but you're not dead either." Hearing this, Luciana felt her soul drop. Anyone who curses the sun god is punished for 3 generations. Though she doubted she'd live long enough to even have grandchildren, the idea of falling back into hell again snapped her into action. She threw herself to the floor, banging her forehead against the ground. "Oh sun god, forgive my sins. Have mercy on this poor soul. Please bless me with your love, deliver me from eternal damnation." "Enough. Enough." Horatio groaned irritably. He hated crying faces more than anything. Yet somehow hers didn't annoy him at all. Suddenly he scooped her up. She froze instantly, tears stopping mid-breath. Only when he placed her gently onto the bed did she realize her body had just been pressed against his strong physique. Terror shot through her, her whole body went stiff and she fainted on the spot. Horatio couldn't believe it, she actually fainted. Why is she this weak? We are the descendants of the sun, ruling over humans from above. Their lives are short, insignificant. But this human girl, she's the first one who ever looked straight into my eyes. And more than that, I can't read her thoughts at all. Killing her now would be a waste. He turned to his attendants. "Keep a close eye on her, she might start yelling again." Then after a moment he added, "Uneasy, and treat her with respect." The next morning, a shrill groundhog-like scream echoed through the palace. Heavens, I must be dreaming. Yes, that's the only explanation. Gino stared at the peacefully sleeping human woman, panicking. Why is the human sacrifice still alive? Horatio, meanwhile, stroked the head of his black panther and said coolly, "Remember what I said, that I plan to let her live." What? Your Highness, why? What if someone senses her human scent? Are you doing this to provoke your father? Horatio simply stroked his pet's head and chuckled. What's with that face? Isn't this what you wanted? Weren't you the one hoping I'd lose my first time? Gino's expression collapsed instantly. Why, Your Highness? Do you really intend to sleep with that human sacrifice? That's right. The man answered so casually that Gino practically exploded. Seeing him panic, Horatio grinned mischievously. Relax, that I was joking. Hearing that, Gino shook with fury. Your Highness, I nearly died from shock. Then when are you planning to get rid of her? Don't tell me you're keeping her as a pet. We cannot let her live. Even if His Majesty allowed it, the Queen would never forgive you. If she sends another envoy, that human is doomed. Let me kill her before that happens. Horatio shrugged. Maybe you're right. Of course I'm right. So let's go end her life now. Gino sighed in relief, thinking the prince finally came to his senses. Then Horatio beamed. Yes, I'll go to bed right away with her. Gino froze like a statue. Why, Your Highness, what did you just say? I heard nothing, not a single word. Horatio looked at him with mild amusement. Your arrogance is truly shocking. Gino, do you want me to erase that expression from your face, just like I did to the others? The moment he said that, Gino burst into tears. Your Highness, that's far too cruel. Horatio remained indifferent. If you shut your mouth, no one will ever know. Pitifully, Gino still refused to give up and whispered, Your Highness, how long do you plan to hide that human girl? Your situation is different from your brother's. Horatio's mother had been immortal, which was why, as a demigod, he bore black hair and black eyes. Since ancient times, demigods had never been acknowledged as true gods. Even if recognized by the highest deity, the end was the same. Most were assassinated or poisoned under the name of divine punishment. Yet Horatio survived and even ruled the heavens as a prince. He inherited his father's golden glory, and more importantly, he was born with mind reading. Because of that, the gods feared him, even the almighty sun god, Sol. Thinking of his complicated lineage, Horatio's smile faded. Everyone in my family just wants to force me to lose my virginity, right? But we never expected your partner to be a human. Gino shouted anxiously. If you go through with this, you might lose your title, Your Highness. Horatio didn't care at all. Is that so? Then so what? Hearing this, Gino smacked his head repeatedly, his tiny fairy brain feeling 3 sizes bigger. In the divine realm, once a prince comes of age, he must marry a royal member or a high-ranking fairy. And the marriage must be consummated, a long-established rule. Those who truly supported the queen and the royal faction even compiled a list of potential brides, hoping to place Prince Horatio under their control. Yet Prince Horatio intended to forfeit his right to the throne by giving his first time to a mortal woman. At that thought, Gino suddenly froze. Wait, even if His Highness slept with a human woman, he would still remain the sole judge. That meant that not even the sun god Sol could strip him of his title. Gino's mind began racing wildly. He murmured thoughtfully, even so, something still feels wrong. Letting you give your first night to a human woman? Horatio let out a silent sigh. As long as it keeps them away from me, I'll be delighted. But Your Highness, you might be completely exiled from the heavens. Horatio didn't panic at all. He simply poured himself a glass of wine, lifted it lazily, and smiled as brightly as sunlight. That's exactly what I want. A short while later, Luciana slowly opened her eyes. Still groggy from sleep, she thought, I can feel the warmth of the sun. Was it all just a dream? Or did the sun god pity me and bring me to heaven? She suddenly froze, realizing her hands were tied. At that moment, a pleasant voice sounded. You said you're not Gradia. Then what is your name? Luciana. The girl stared blankly at the handsome face above her and answered instinctively. Seeing this, Horatio curved his lips. Luciana. You may call me Horatio. The girl was instantly overwhelmed by his stunning beauty, her face flushing red as her heart pounded uncontrollably. But she quickly snapped back, terror flooding her. Please don't kill me. Please untie me. Of course, so long as you promise not to faint again. With a snap of his fingers, the ropes around her wrists loosened on their own. Luciana flinched and with a jolt of pain sat up on the bed. She quickly turned around, kneeling forward on the mattress, bowing to Horatio with reverent devotion. The man lifted her chin with one hand. With a warm sunlit smile, he said softly, You may lift your head. But the girl, blushing fiercely, turned her gaze away. Amused, Horatio spoke again. I told you to look up. His voice seemed to carry a strange magic, making Luciana raise her head obediently. Satisfied, Horatio's smile brightened even more. Good girl. These 2 pairs of eyes were destined to meet Luciana. Staring at the mysterious man with a smile like sunlight, the only thought in her heart was, he's breathtakingly beautiful. I want you to live, Horatio said again gently. The words snapped her back to reality. She asked, almost disbelieving, Your Highness, you're truly forgiving me? Of course that in fact I could even grant you immortality, if you spend the night in my bed. Hearing his words, Luciana turned pale with shock. She stammered, A whole night, in your bed? And what if I don't want immortality? You're brave, but do you dare refuse? The moment he said that, the girl froze, unable to make a sound. Horatio stepped down from the bed. Rest. Take care of your body. You're weaker than a mouse. Even after he left, Luciana still couldn't recover from the shock. Her mother's warning echoed in her mind. Men are no different from beasts. Protect your purity at all costs. Tears streamed down her cheeks. That he was a god, but still a man. His words sounded gentle, yes. But if I fail to please him, he might turn me into stone. Or what should I do? As Luciana grieved silently, a strong floral scent suddenly cut through her thoughts. A droplet of water fell onto the marble floor. With a soft pop, it transformed into a girl with green hair. Luciana was so startled that her face went pale. Once again, a shrill, marmot-like scream echoed through the celestial palace. The green-haired girl frantically waved her hands in introduction. Hello. I'm Nico, a low-level water nymph. His Highness sent me to take care of you. I'm truly sorry for scaring you, Lady Lishiana. I brought you some water. But Lishiana rejected all food and drink, simply hugging her knees on the bed in silence. Innocent Nico couldn't understand why the lady was so sad. Being assigned to serve the prince's very first partner. That's the greatest honor of my life. But there was a fundamental problem. Mortals couldn't survive long in the celestial palace. Their fragile bodies couldn't withstand the essence of the sun. They would wither. I explained she needed nourishment to stay alive, but the lady kept refusing everything. Seeing Lishiana sit silently without a word, Nico grew so anxious her eyes brimmed with tears. Lady Lishiana, please. My orders were that you must drink this holy water. It contains Prince Orecchio's essence. Lishiana accepted the cup, staring blankly ahead, making no move to drink. Nico simply couldn't fathom why she wouldn't drink it. This holy water, infused with His Highness's essence, is one of the highest grade luxuries blessed by Goddess Teska. A single cup could pay the dowry of all 19 of my siblings. Suddenly a voice broke through her thoughts. If I drink this, what will happen to me? Nico quickly replied, you'll become healthy and beautiful, just like the goddesses of Bovius. Lishiana sniffled, then said earnestly, Nico, if you want, you can drink this instead. The moment she said that, Nico panicked. I can't. I would never dare covet something His Highness granted to you, Lady Lishiana. Seeing Nico recoil in pure terror, Lishiana resigned herself and downed the holy water in one gulp. Seizing the chance, Nico quickly asked, then, will you start eating tomorrow? Lishiana shook her head wildly and Nico looked on the verge of tears. Water. Will you at least keep drinking water? Hearing the pleading tone, Lishiana slowly nodded. Nico instantly brightened, beaming. Thank you, Lady Lishiana. Oh, right. You can lie in bed with Prince Orecchio now. Then using her magic, she filled Lishiana's hair with orange blossoms. Lishiana froze, utterly confused. Nico explained excitedly, ladies in heaven always wear orange blossoms on their heads before their wedding night. Before the words even settled, Lishiana, who was drinking her second cup, spat the water everywhere. Meanwhile, in the grand hall, Orecchio sat upon his throne, judging sinful beings as usual. Servants worked methodically to clean up the bloody scene. Just then, the sprite Nico arrived to make her report. Trembling as she looked at the scene before her, she stammered, Your Highness. Today, Lady Lishiana drank water. Orecchio's gaze turned icy. If you came here only to tell me she drank water, then disappear from my sight. At once, Nico shrieked, reverted to her true form and bolted away. It seemed the human girl had completely piqued Orecchio's interest. She refused food and survived solely on holy water. If not for my healing, she'd probably be dead already, Gino whispered to himself, hiding behind a massive stone pillar. Hearing his thoughts, Orecchio said coldly, I know you're hiding there. If you want to live, step out. Gino immediately leapt from behind the pillar. I was just passing by, Your Highness. Orecchio rose from his throne, his tone even colder. I think I should punish you first, then ask why you decided to pass by. Terrified, Gino shifted into his true form, but still forced out the question. Your Highness, do you truly intend to let that mortal woman live? Orecchio didn't answer, he only sighed silently. Here we go again, he thought as he calmly poured himself a cup of wine. Seeing this, Gino nervously continued, Your Highness, I don't think letting a mortal drink holy water infused with your essence is a wise idea. I beg you to reconsider. At that moment, Orecchio, who had been staring down at his cup, suddenly lifted his gaze toward Gino. Their eyes met and Gino screamed in agony, Aya. He clutched his eyes. My soul is disappearing. Oh, Your Highness, please spare me. Your Highness, do you truly want me to die? Watching Gino sob and tremble, Orecchio turned away refreshed and took a leisurely sip of wine. That human girl can look into my eyes, he said calmly. Hearing that, the eyeless sprite instinctively replied, Whether she can look at your eyes or not doesn't matter. We should eliminate her first. Wait. Gino suddenly snapped back to his senses. Did you just say, she looked into your eyes, her soul remained intact? Exactly, Orecchio said with interest. That's why I want her alive. Even if I have to force-feed her, you don't find that amusing? Suddenly his expression turned cold and his face began to glow. In an instant he vanished. Jinho stared blankly at the wine cup rolling across the floor, utterly clueless about what had happened. Meanwhile, Lixiana had thrown herself from the celestial palace, determined to trade her life for freedom. But Horatio, who had been watching her closely, sensed it immediately and rushed over, catching her safely in his arms. At this moment Horatio was truly enraged, letting out a cold laugh. He said softly, "Let me make something clear. Even if your body shatters into pieces, I can bring you back to life." With that, he brought the girl back to the celestial palace and laid her on the bed again. Then he grabbed the half-eaten fruit beside the bed and handed it to her, speaking in a gentle tone that carried an icy threat. "Resurrection is an extremely painful process. Remember that." Hearing this, Lixiana took the fruit with trembling hands. A wave of terror swept through her. "So, I can't even die if I want to. I no longer have the right to choose anything for myself." Seeing her trembling, Horatio felt she still hadn't realized her mistake and continued, "I know that when it happened that Narcissus sprite wasn't home." As he spoke, he lifted his hand and brushed lightly through the air. In the next instant, Lixiana's pupils trembled. An image of someone being beheaded flashed across her vision. Only then did she understand just how brutal a method this god could use. Yet he could still smile brightly as he said, "Now, tell me why you wouldn't eat the fruit. That if you refuse, your little sprite will meet the same end." From that day on, she was placed under even stricter surveillance. Every morning, Nico brought her food, and Lixiana, for Nico's sake, forced it down her throat even though she despised it. But the divine food she consumed did take effect. Lixiana seemed to be regaining her health. Horatio would often show up without warning to check on the girl, and every time Nico would panic, revert to her true form and vanish immediately. Lixiana endured Horatio's merciless smile while exchanging polite small talk with him, until it was time for bed. Horatio seemed quite pleased with this utterly mundane routine. For 2 centuries he had avoided any form of contact with others, for his cursed blessing caused the souls of those who met his gaze to wither. But Lixiana was different. She feared him, yet her soul remained untouched, and because he couldn't read her thoughts, Horatio finally found a rare sense of peace in another's presence. He allowed her to shed a few tears, and if she ever tried to jump again, he knew he would resurrect her over and over. He had even considered granting her immortality. However, there was one problem: she lacked endurance. Thinking of this, Horatio let out a quiet sigh. "Lixiana, go to sleep." "I will, Your Highness." But as she lay down obediently, her lips tightened with silent grievance. She forced herself to close her eyes, telling herself, "I have to sleep." She didn't want to, though, and her curiosity got the better of her. She secretly opened her eyes. "Why does the Sun Prince want me to stay alive?" Drowsy and restless, Lixiana thought and thought, yet sleep wouldn't come. Suddenly she sat up. Indeed, doing nothing all day and then trying to sleep was unbearably dull. Just then Nico walked in. Seeing that Lixiana was already up, she smiled. "You're awake? His Highness went hunting. Would you like a bath first or something to eat? The figs are especially sweet and fresh today." Horatio had grown obsessed with extending Lixiana's sleeping hours, claiming it was the only way she could survive in the celestial palace. Most of the time he kept her in a near unconscious state. Only holy water could pull her out of that haze. "I feel a bit dizzy. Sorry to interrupt. Nico, is there anything I can help with?" Nico blinked in confusion. "Lady Lixiana, are you bored? Would you like to dance with me, or maybe sing?" "No, I want to work," Lixiana said urgently. "I don't care what kind of work. Cleaning, wiping things down, preparing fruit, anything. Please, I need to do something. If I don't." She stopped herself abruptly, biting down hard and swallowing the rest of the thought. "I'll go insane." Hearing this, Nico explained, "Lady Lixiana, ladies of royal blood don't work. But I'm different. I don't have royal lineage." Nico looked at her, utterly puzzled. "But as His Highness's partner, your status is practically that of a queen." Before she could finish, Nico suddenly shrieked, "Ah!" Overwhelmed by terror, she instantly dissolved into a drop of water and vanished before Lixiana's eyes. At the same time, Horatio appeared at the doorway. As always, he wore a radiant smile. "You're awake, Lixiana. Lixiana gave an awkward smile and said nothing, thinking quietly to herself. He seems to enjoy watching my reactions. Seeing this, Horatio stepped closer and asked gently, "Is something troubling you?" "No, nothing at all." "Is that so?" His tone shifted. "I dislike liars, Lixiana." The girl hesitated. In the end, she spoke up. "Weiss, I wanted to ask if there's any work I could do." Horatio paused, momentarily confused. "Work?" "Yes, work," Lixiana nodded. "Could you give me something to do, Your Highness? My hands are quite skilled that if you give me rush grass I can weave a sturdy basket or box." Hearing this, Horatio found her unbearably adorable. Unable to resist, he reached out with that dangerous hand of his and gently patted her head. He chuckled softly. "Rush grass. How interesting." He lifted the girl's chin in one swift motion, staring intently into her eyes as he spoke slowly. "But Lixiana, you don't need rush grass. You don't need to do any work either, that I will provide everything you need. So all you have to do is stay where you are. That is your job." Facing the domineering man, Lixiana thought quietly to herself. Here he goes again. He stared at me with those eyes. Obsessive, yet carrying an indescribable mix of sorrow and cruelty. "Sit there and wait for me. That is your job. That is what you are meant to do. You are mine and I am the reason you exist." He can do whatever he wants, yet why does he look so unhappy? Jinho, hiding by the palace entrance, couldn't understand it at all. Just then, Jinho noticed Nicole in the distance, rummaging through the rush grass. He shouted loudly, "Hey, how's that human woman doing?" The sudden voice sent a cold sweat down Nicole's face. "You scared me," she steadied herself. "You mean, Lady Lixiana?" Watching Jinho walk toward her step by step, Nicole stood up and said hesitantly, "She's fine." Who would have thought a mere mortal could live safely in the Celestial Palace? Nicole's mind was in complete turmoil as she added softly, "Maybe she isn't doing so well after all." Jinho looked shocked. "She actually spoke to you like that? What could possibly make her so unhappy?" Nicole answered timidly, "It's like this." Before she could finish, Horatio cut her off. "You must be Nicole." The moment he spoke, cold sweat poured down her back as she stiffly turned her head. "My lord," she cried out while Jinho trembled beside her. "My lord, I nearly had a heart attack." Horatio's eyes turned icy as he stared at Nicole. "Such insolence! You must have little regard for your own life." Nicole shook violently. "My lord, I don't know what you mean." Horatio rested his chin on his hand with visible interest. "You dared to appear before me after taking linum, all to stop yourself from thinking about Lixiana. How utterly audacious." Linum, it turned out, was a mental shield forged from sulfur, aged gold and ancient magic that it allowed its user to temporarily block Horatio's intrusion into their thoughts, keeping their souls safely away from his dark gaze. Hearing this, Nicole burst into tears of fear and explained shakily, "I had no other choice, my lord. I was only worried that you might be troubled because of Lady Lixiana." Horatio let out a cold laugh. "Worried? You dare to use such a word." Hearing the man's unusually cold words, the two elves were instantly thrown into panic. At that moment, Horatio was thinking, should I kill her? No. If that human girl finds out the water nymph is dead, she will faint again. So this is why I've been so irritated these past days. With that realization, Horatio abruptly raised his hand, and a massive blue flame ignited in his palm. Nicole stared blankly at the deep blue fire, her soul slipping away as her eyes lost focus and her mouth slowly opened. She began to mutter, "I, Nicole, feel deeply sorry for Lady Lixiana. I'm afraid she might jump from the balcony at any moment. I feel sad for Lady Lixiana. She's forced to eat and sometimes she vomits everything back up. She can't even risk leaving the palace because my lord has sealed every entrance that I wish I could help her. But Lord Jinho warned me, if I anger my lord he will burn my home to the ground. Lady Lixiana isn't happy that she's terrified of the third prince, yet she still forces herself to keep smiling." As Nicole continued speaking, her body tipped backward. With a dull thud, she collapsed into the rush grass. Looking at the man's darkened expression, Jinho asked weakly, "So, was this the reason for last month's thunderstorm? Did that human woman anger you?" Horatio gave no reply. As he walked away, he ordered Jinho, "Erase that water nymph's memory, then bring me more rush grass." Jinno cast him a quick glance and asked in confusion, "Your Highness, do you want even more rush grass?" "Yes, fill her entire room with it." Jinno couldn't help asking, "Your Highness, what is this obsession with the human girl? Your family has been asking whether you've lost your virginity, and now I'm stuck in an impossible position." Horatio replied calmly, "In that case, why don't you pay the palace a visit tomorrow?" "Then, Your Highness, what reason should I give for the visit?" "Go show them proof. Proof that I finally brought someone into my bed." Elsewhere, Lishiana sat on the balcony, lifting her gaze toward the radiant sunlight she longed for. Behind her stood the maid assigned to watch her, while she sank into quiet thought. "Perhaps one day I'll end up like them, living like a walking corpse. I've spent my entire life fighting hunger. Back then all I wanted was a sip of water. Yet I was so thirsty I lost consciousness, surviving only by chewing grass from the ground. But strangely things are completely different now. I have a soft bed to lie on with food and drink always within reach. So why am I still searching for a reason to live? Freedom. Oh God, I don't want to merely survive. I want freedom. Something a slave can never hope for. Mother, when I was little you gave me false hope. I hated you for that. Lishiana, one day you will be free. Even after I die I will pray for you. May you live through everything I never could, like a light in the darkness." "You were wrong, Mother." At that moment, a lively voice interrupted Lishiana's thoughts. "Look at this, Lady Lishiana. Guess what Nicole brought you?" Nicole hugged a large bundle of reed grass, her face clearly saying, "Praise me, praise me." But Lishiana didn't look happy as expected. Instead she said anxiously, "But Nicole, if His Highness finds out you brought me reed grass, you'll—" "She has my permission." Hearing Horatio's voice, Lishiana turned her head. Her small face stiffened in surprise. She parted her lips, but no sound came out. She could only stare at the man's eyes in silence. Horatio stood beneath the sunlight, smiling brightly. "You wanted it, didn't you? Reed grass." Even though he had said it was useless, he still brought piles of reed grass before the girl. Lishiana stared at the scene, completely confused. "Why bring me so much reed grass?" Before she could ask, Horatio spoke first. "Lishiana, how do you feel?" Facing his familiar radiant smile, the girl looked utterly bewildered. She thought this was a task Horatio had assigned to her. So she immediately bowed in gratitude. But there was no response. She stole a glance at him, only to see Horatio frowning slightly, clearly dissatisfied. The girl was instantly frightened into tears, panic flashing through her mind. Did I say something wrong? Should I have said something else? Seeing this, Horatio decisively reached out with that dangerous hand, gently cupping her cheeks and carefully wiping away her tears. In a soft voice he said, "When you express gratitude you should smile." But hearing those words only made Lishiana cry harder. For the first time, even the almighty Sun Prince was at a loss. He withdrew his hand from her face, clearly unsettled. Then he spoke coldly. "Lishiana, you said you wanted to live." Lishiana froze, trembling. "See, could you say that again?" "No, I mean, yes, that I want to live." Horatio tilted his head, sounding almost playful. "Strange. Those who want to live usually beg me for their lives." As soon as the words fell, Lishiana dropped to her knees with a dull thud. Shaking violently, she bowed her head. "Your Highness, I beg you. Please end my life completely." Faced with her utterly unexpected response, Horatio laughed in disbelief. "What? Do you really want to die?" He suddenly grabbed her by the shoulders and threw her into the piled reed grass. Under Lishiana's shocked gaze, he leaned down and pinned her beneath him. "As I told you before, I value etiquette. After all, I am the Sun Prince, crowned in gold." The girl panicked completely. "Wait, Your Highness," she blurted out. "I know you're kinder than you appear. You're gentle, merciful." The man laughed softly. "Me? If you ask me to kill you again, I'll make you my woman right here. I know that for a woman like you, it would be more painful than death. Of course, you could also beg me to spare your life. If you do, then while I possess you, I will do everything in my power to keep you alive. That way, you can belong to me forever. I can see your thoughts turning in your mind. Lishiana, if you truly wanted to die, you wouldn't be hesitating now." With that, Horatio domineeringly lifted her chin and slowly moved closer to her lips. In an instant, he stole all the air from her lungs. The moment felt as though time itself had stopped. Only when Luciana was on the verge of losing breath did Horatio finally pull away. Looking at the girl's flushed face and shallow breathing, he chuckled lightly. "Just a kiss and you're already this exhausted?" Luciana said nothing, only feeling her heart pound against her throat, her body burning as if set alight. Horatio then spoke softly. "That's enough for today, that you'll need to grow stronger if you want to endure me." As he spoke, he took the girl's small hand, brought it to his lips and bit down lightly. He then produced a pristine white handkerchief and let the crimson blood drip onto it. Turning to a nearby maid, he ordered, "Tell Gino to take this to my father's palace." After that, he treated the girl's palm like a treasure, pressing a gentle kiss to it and telling her to rest well. Soon, his presence vanished from before her eyes, leaving Luciana alone, lying among the reed grass with her face burning red. Only then did she realize. The servants had been standing nearby all along, witnessing their intimacy. Wait, did Nicole see it too? How am I supposed to face her after this? Before Luciana could think further, a very much survival instinct-driven Nicole appeared. "I'm so sorry, Lady Luciana. His Highness appeared so suddenly. Are you all right?" Hearing this, Luciana blushed and shed tears of relief. She didn't see us, thank goodness. The next day, Gino stood before the palace gates, clutching the proof of Horatio's lost virginity, his heart pounding with unease. I knew this day would come eventually. Soon, the solemn and magnificent gates slowly opened. Gino spoke respectfully. "Gino, attendant from Tesca, on behalf of His Highness Horatio Rumen, pays his respects to His Majesty Sol Rumen, the Almighty Son of the Sun, and humbly requests an audience." After Sol motioned for everyone else in the hall to withdraw, he asked, "Who is the girl who took Horatio's virginity?" Cold sweat poured down Gino's back. Clenching his hands, he forced himself to answer, "She is human." The palace chamber fell into absolute silence. After a long pause, Sol's authoritative voice rang out again. "Did he bring back the human sacrifice offered to him? Is she a priestess with special abilities? Is she the woman described in the prophecy?" The barrage of questions left Gino stunned that he blurted out, "Could you repeat that, Your Majesty?" Realizing his mistake, he hurriedly added, "She is absolutely not the one from the prophecy. She appears to be a priestess with extremely weak divine power. I believe she has no connection to the legend at all. Your Majesty, you wouldn't truly believe that Prince Horatio intends to rebel against you, would you? My son Horatio is still of value to me, despite his arrogance and insolence, Gino." "Yes, Your Majesty. Change her. Make sure everyone regards her as a social courtesan of the royal court." Hearing this, Gino froze in confusion and stammered, "Sorry, I thought you wanted me to," before Sol cut him off. "I'm certain Horatio will appear only briefly, then return to Tesca." "That is very likely, Your Majesty. While they remain, everyone else must believe that this human girl belongs to the royal palace. Once Horatio loses interest in her, we can dispose of her. Until then, I will seal this matter that I, Sol Rumen, have no intention of going to war with my third son." Ever since her last kiss with Horatio, Luciana had remained unconscious for an entire week. During that time, her once fragile and broken body steadily recovered. Even the brand of a runaway slave that had marked her since childhood had completely vanished. The smooth, unblemished skin before her eyes made the girl understand. This was all because of Horatio. Seeing Nicole watching her with a face full of concern after her long sleep, Luciana hesitated. Then she spoke apologetically, "Nicole, I'm a little hungry. Could you get me something to eat?" Hearing this, Nicole's face flushed bright red with excitement. "Of course. I'll get you some food right away." Luciana quickly finished 2 large bowls of food. Stretching contentedly, she thought to herself, "I don't know why, but I feel so refreshed." Just a single kiss had left her feeling this full of vitality. Thinking of that, she let out a self-mocking smile. "You know, Nicole, I'm not a priestess at all. Before coming here, I was actually a slave. The mark of slavery constantly reminded me that I stood at the very bottom of society, yet it vanished with something as simple as a kiss. So fleeting." Hearing this, Nicole shook her head in firm disagreement. "Don't say that, Lady Luciana. Your life is not short at all. That I in the heavenly palace, aside from the gods, everyone is equal. That means your past holds no meaning here. And no matter what others think, Prince Horatio chose you as his woman. That means everyone must respect you." Hearing this, Luciana froze and turned to look at Nicole. Nicole smiled like an angel, her expression as bright as sunlight. "You're also the first lady I've ever served. To me, you're very special. I'm truly glad to serve you, Lady Luciana." Those warm words completely melted the iron resolve she had held for so long. Having never known such warmth before, Luciana couldn't hold back and shed tears of happiness. In that moment she finally let go, telling herself silently, "You must think carefully, Luciana. This may be your last stroke of good fortune." She lifted her gaze toward the brilliant sun. Then Orecchio's soft murmur echoed in her ears. "You need to grow stronger, strong enough to bear me." She turned around abruptly, yet there was no sign of the man. Still, Luciana smiled faintly. "If my life, no matter what, depends on Prince Orecchio, then I will follow the will of the gods and make full use of everything I've been given." With that thought, she walked over to the reed grass Orecchio had given her, ready to put herself to work. After half a day of non-stop effort, the palace of Tesca was completely filled with woven reed grass. Orecchio and Gino were left utterly dumbfounded by the sight. Since waking up, Luciana had been brimming with energy, weaving baskets without pause. Nicole kept urging her to rest, but she refused every time. Upon hearing this, Orecchio said displeased, "You're wasting the little energy you have on something this pointless." Gino, standing nearby, nearly lost his mind. "This is a complete disaster. How am I supposed to turn such a stubborn human woman into a refined, elegant fairy?" Before he could finish, the overprotective Orecchio sealed Gino's mouth with divine power. In that moment, the man's favoritism was on full display. Seeing the girl greet him with such vibrant enthusiasm, Orecchio could hardly believe it. Caught off guard, he said, "Luciana, it's me. I know, Your Highness. You are the third son of the great sun god. The sun prince who values etiquette above all else. Following your instructions, I've been carrying out my task the whole time. At least according to my own understanding. I told you my hands are skillful and that I can make sturdy things. Your Highness, you said I should do everything within my ability." Hearing this, Orecchio suddenly reached out his hand toward her and said gently, "Then why don't you let me see?" Luciana immediately handed over the basket she had woven. Orecchio held it up, looking completely puzzled. Then he extended his warm hand again. "I mean, give me your hand. Your hands are dirty." With that, he instantly used divine power to clean her hands spotless. Feeling Orecchio's concern, Luciana blushed instantly. The intimate atmosphere barely lasted 2 seconds before Nicole's ill-timed voice cut in from the side. She cried out anxiously, "Your Highness, something's wrong with Lord Gino." As soon as she spoke, both of them turned toward Gino. His mouth and nose were sealed and he was about to suffocate, so Orecchio waved his hand and lifted the seal without hesitation. Gino, finally free, completely lost it. "I thought I was going to suffocate. Your Highness, how could you do that to me? What am I supposed to do to make her look like a proper palace fairy?" he shouted, watching a certain spirit throw a full 360-degree tantrum on the floor. Luciana, however, happily thanked him. "Gino, you're so kind, you made the wind for us. Thanks to you, the paper reed grass dried much faster." Nicole awkwardly chimed in, I guess that's true. Thank you, Lord Gino." Hearing this, Gino nearly exploded. "I've had enough. This is no time to be weaving paper reed baskets." The girl flatly refused. "I have to do this. This is the task His Highness assigned me." Gino hopped on his short legs, trying to snatch the finished basket. "What's wrong with you, woman? Put that down right now." "My name is Luciana," she corrected calmly. "Not woman. It's Luciana." As soon as those words left her mouth, Orecchio's pupils shrank. He was genuinely shocked by how uncharacteristically forceful the girl was today. A certain prince and a certain spirit froze in place, whispering to each other, "What's wrong with her? What does she mean? Your Highness, didn't you say she was bedridden for a whole week?" She really was. "You don't think something's wrong with her head, do you?" Orecchio didn't answer, silently accepting the suggestion. The woman who once sought death at every turn had completely changed before his eyes. She was obsessed with weaving paper reed baskets, yet she seemed far happier than before. Luciana said brightly, "Do you have any other tasks for me? Just give the word and I promise I'll do my very best." Staring at this girl whose mind was filled with nothing but baskets, Gino ground his teeth. "Very well. Lady Luciana, Can you play any musical instruments? The girl shook her head. Can you recite poetry? Sing? Dance? She shook her head again. Good heavens, then what can you do? As you can see, she replied earnestly, I can weave sturdy paper reed baskets. At those words, Gino's volcano finally erupted. I want you to memorize everything written on these scrolls, and stop fooling around with those stupid paper reed baskets. Late at night, Gino paced back and forth in agitation. This won't work. This really won't work. She can't play any instruments, she can't dance or sing. No one will ever see her as a fairy. It seems the priestess of Eladigo isn't nearly as socially adept as I imagined. She's a slave, Gino. What? A slave? Gino stared in disbelief, then suddenly brightened. Your Highness, perhaps visiting the Archmage would be a better option. To reach the mage, you'd have to climb a dangerous mountain. You wouldn't seriously consider taking that frail human woman with you, would you? We have no other choice. The Imperial Festival is only a month away. I'd rather risk a deadly climb than let everyone discover you slept with a human woman and get struck by lightning for it. Horatio fell silent in thought, then suddenly said, We're receiving guests from the royal palace tomorrow. Did the Queen send another traitor for judgment? Yes. I want you to leave early tomorrow morning. I don't want them smelling Luciana's human scent. To prevent the girl's human identity from being exposed, and to avoid her meeting a brutal end, Horatio ultimately decided to have Gino take Luciana to Mount Clayrey, to visit the most knowledgeable mage in the world. At this moment, not far from the Palace of Tesca, the three of them were struggling through steep mountain terrain. Ugh! Gino, who rarely exercised, panted heavily. I should have had His Highness make us a cloud carriage. At the mention of Horatio, Luciana suddenly recalled that morning, when His Highness had come to see her in person. She found herself wondering why he had come at all. Seeing the sprite ahead of her struggling to keep up, Luciana thought she should do something for His Highness and spoke up. Excuse me, Gino. What now? You can climb onto my back. Gino froze in shock and blurted out, I'm old, I'm not suited for this kind of thing. Then he quickly corrected himself, adding in a proud tone, But for you, Lady Luciana, I'll make an exception. Before long, the three of them neared their destination. Gino pointed at a massive boulder ahead and said excitedly, This is it. Well done, Lady Luciana. He then jumped off her back without hesitation. Hearing praise from Gino for the first time, a quiet sense of pride rose in Luciana's heart. She clasped her hands together and thanked the gods for the new life she had been given. I like this place. I can hear the forest, leaves rustling, insects chirping, even the wind feels alive. Just then Gino, who had rushed ahead to lead the way, turned back and shouted, Why are you so slow? Hurry up, we're here. Nicole quickly replied. Then she couldn't help whispering, Sometimes he really acts like a grumpy old man. Hearing that, Luciana asked in confusion, Nicole, how old is Gino? I'm not sure, but I'm certain he's at least 500 years old. 500. At that moment, Luciana noticed a strange creature in the distance. Its upper body was human, yet its lower body was that of a horse. She thought her eyes were deceiving her. She rubbed them, but the sight did not change. This was the mage they had come to visit. Upon seeing Luciana, the mage was equally startled and said to Gino, When I heard His Highness chose her as his first partner, I assumed he would choose someone like the fairy Aphrodite. Tell me honestly, she's a human girl? Gino replied awkwardly, Mage, that is exactly why we came to see you. Fortunately, she's far smarter than she looks, and she's also good at weaving paper reed baskets. Hearing this, the mage said in mild surprise, Baskets? Then he stomped hard on the ground. In an instant, a massive goat beast appeared in the air, leaving both girls frozen in shock. Seeing this, the mage said, I was merely warning you about the goat monsters in this area. You don't want to be swallowed whole, do you? Gino said weakly from the side, Mage, don't you understand? His Highness intends to give his chastity to this woman. The mage said calmly, I was only joking. Don't worry, stay near me and you won't be harmed. That wasn't funny at all. Soon the mage led them to a cave, his dwelling. The moment they reached the entrance, they were stunned by the sheer number of books before them. The mage, who had vanished as soon as they entered, reappeared carrying food. You must be starving. Help yourselves, but if you don't mind, I'll go back to my work. He left without waiting for a reply. Watching him go, Lixiana sighed. He's a good person. Gino snorted. Good my foot. We crossed mountains to see him and all he gives us is beer and venison. Nicole picked up a mug of beer and joined in. They say he's the greatest sage alive. I've never seen so many scrolls, it's amazing. With his mouth full of venison, Gino still found time to brag. Amazing, I mastered this kind of knowledge long ago. Seeing this, Lixiana covered her mouth and laughed. Gino asked in confusion, why are you laughing? Lixiana replied, you were kind of cute just now. The sprite's face instantly turned red. What did you say? Nicole added cheerfully, Lord Gino, your face is red like a cherry. At that moment, Lixiana glanced toward a nearby desk and noticed a pile of scattered tools. She murmured, the mage must be very busy. Gino replied while eating non-stop, that's true. He may seem rough and eccentric, but without a doubt he's the smartest scholar in the world. After eating and drinking his fill, Gino lay straight down and said lazily that the mage probably had no time for him now, so they should rest while he was away. Hearing this, Nicole immediately panicked. The conditions here were too rough and she was afraid Lixiana wouldn't rest well. She frowned and said, Gino, you must be joking. The mage surely wouldn't want us to stay the night here, would he? But Lixiana cheerfully picked up some dry branches and said, Nicole, I'm fine. Still, before sleeping there are a few things I want to do. At the same time, the Empress's scheme was unfolding within the palace of Tesca. Horatio looked at the envoy from the imperial court and spoke without expression. You claim he betrayed the Empress. This is Pericles, my mentor and the father of my close friend. His hands were clearly spotless, yet Horatio saw them covered in blood. He suddenly burst into laughter, scorching tears spilling from the corners of his eyes. As a light breeze passed, Horatio's face began to glow. In a flash, he appeared in Lixiana's chamber and seeing the palace empty, he remembered she had gone to the mage on Mount Clay. He gathered his divine power and instantly appeared beside the girl. Looking at the girl sleeping peacefully, Horatio thought with quiet loss, Lixiana, will you avert your eyes like everyone else when you face me? A surge of emotion flooded him and Horatio pulled the girl beside him into an embrace. Nestling against his chest in contentment, if only for a moment I want to rest in your arms. Just as the human girl finally decided to accept the Sun Prince's cruelty, the Empress spared no effort to tear them apart. At that moment, in the gardens of the Bovius Empire, the Empress was hosting the fairies of the great families. We've heard that the third prince has finally lost his virginity. I want to know. Which sacred bloodlines did he unite with? The fairies murmured among themselves, assuming the Empress must know. But the Empress let out a cold laugh. Even if she were a descendant of the gods, what would it matter? Horatio will only marry the woman we choose for him. She cast a glance at the girl beside her. You disagree, Tara? Caught off guard by the Empress's cue, Tara froze for a moment. Then she replied calmly, why not see for yourselves at the Imperial Festival? What matters is how His Highness feels about it. With that, the Empress raised her glass. I hope everyone here will join us. Let us bless Prince Horatio for truly having his first woman. The shining jewel of the Bovius Empire has finally made his choice. The banquet soon ended and the Empress tapped the table in displeasure, signaling Tara to follow. She then led Tara to her private palace. The moment they entered the room, Tara hurled the crown from her head onto the marble floor. If His Highness had chosen a fairy from the Pyros family, I wouldn't feel like this. How could he give his virginity to a nobody? Tara, remember my words. Horatio will marry you. You have nothing to worry about. The Empress picked up a glass of wine and sat down on the sofa. She declared confidently, at present, Horatio is nothing more than a loyal hound at Sol's side. And I will do everything I can to make him belong to you. Meanwhile, Lixiana, who had slept in Horatio's arms all night, came down with a fever the next morning, leaving Nicole frantic. What should we do, Lord Gino? This is all because you got sick. Surely it's from carrying her up the mountain the whole way. Hearing this, Gino shouted in panic. What? I never asked her to carry me. At that moment, the mage appeared after hearing the commotion. What's going on? As soon as he spoke, Nicole hurriedly said, Please help us, mage. The mage stepped forward and touched the girl's forehead. The diagnosis ended immediately. It's fatigue. Have her drink some hibiscus tea with cinnamon. She'll recover soon. Nicole looked confused. Are you sure? The mage nodded. I'll prepare the tea. I should still have some herbs here. With that he turned and left. But when he glanced at the bookshelf nearby, he froze. What is this? He stared at the neatly organized scrolls before him. At that moment, the mage finally understood what had caused Lixiana's illness. He then said to Nicole, once our clever little girl recovers, we can begin the lessons. Soon after drinking the tea, Lixiana woke up. Wait, is it raining? Hearing the sound, Nicole brightened at once. Lady Lixiana, how do you feel? Your fever seems to have gone down. The first thing Lixiana said after waking up was, where is His Highness? Nicole replied, I'm sure he's in his palace that we arrived at the mage's cave yesterday. Do you remember? But Lixiana felt as if she had sensed Orecchio's presence last night. Was it nothing more than a dream? At that thought, she suddenly sat up. Nicole, where is Lord Gino? Hearing this, Nicole replied with clear disdain, who cares where that nasty old guy is? The words were caught by Gino just as he walked in. What, were you hoping something happened to me? Without bothering to wipe the rain from himself, Gino walked straight toward Lixiana. Here, Lady Lixiana. The girl asked in confusion, what is this? Gino said proudly, I brought you your favorite spindlegrass. You asked His Highness for a whole mountain of it, remember? Nicole looked speechless. Why would you bring spindlegrass? An apple would have been better. Just then, a voice came from outside the door. Is the little sleepy fairy Lady Lixiana still asleep? Hearing this, Nicole froze. She finally remembered that the mage had said lessons for Lixiana were about to begin, so she quickly grabbed the girl's hand and led her to him. But the scene before her completely stunned Lixiana. In just a few swift motions, the mage turned several strands of silver thread into a silver bowl that it was incredible. Lixiana stared in awe, her mouth wide open, wide enough to fit an egg. The mage turned to her and asked, Little one, would you like to try? Before the girl could answer, Gino frowned and snapped angrily, I asked you to turn her into a goddess, not a blacksmith. The mage remained completely calm. Let them say whatever they want, it doesn't matter. People will see Lady Lixiana as a descendant of the goddess Kark. They'll believe she learned how to craft metal bows from you. Hearing this, Gino waved his hand helplessly. First, I'm not interested in that. Second, Kark is the goddess of stone. Nearby, Nicole puffed out her cheeks, thinking hard. What's wrong with stone? The mage ignored Gino entirely and turned to Lixiana, whose face clearly said, I want to learn. Little one, follow my lead. First like this, then like this. Less than 0.1 seconds. A lifelike silver flower appeared in the girl's hand. The two elves stared in shock, instantly becoming Lixiana's biggest fans. Wow, it's beautiful. Really beautiful. Seeing this, the mage smiled in satisfaction, his white teeth showing, and patted the girl on the shoulder. His Highness visited me last night, that I'll do everything I can not to disappoint him. Hearing this, Lixiana froze, her face instantly turning red. His Highness was here last night. So it wasn't a dream. The human girl finally realized her feelings for the Sun Prince. Yet the god who cherished her had not appeared again. A full week had passed since Orecchio last held Lixiana as she slept, and he had not come back since. Today was the day the three of them were to return, and the man was still nowhere to be seen. Outside the cave, the rain continued without pause. The mage brought out a box of dried amber so they could keep warm while descending the mountain in the heavy rain. Gino scratched his head awkwardly. It had been his insistence that they leave today. A full week of non-stop rain made him deeply worried about Orecchio. After all, only Orecchio's emotions could directly affect the weather. The three walked along the muddy path, facing the harsh conditions ahead. Gino grew increasingly anxious. I don't understand why His Highness is so depressed. He knows we're returning today. Lixiana frowned slightly. Prince Orecchio is in low spirits? But what does his mood have to do with the weather? Someone like me, a mere mortal, will probably never understand a god. Even so, I still wanted to know more about His Highness, and why he wanted me to live forever. At that moment, several bolts of lightning suddenly struck down. Nicole immediately burst into tears, crying in panic. Gino frowned deeply, his worry growing heavier. His Highness simply didn't know when to stop. Watch your step. The ground is slippery, he warned, then sprinted ahead through the rain. The two girls followed right after him. Before long, they arrived at the gates of the Tesca Palace. Gino looked frantic. Nicole, take Lady Lixiana to the tower. I need to speak with His Highness. With that, he turned and ran off, leaving the two of them standing there in a daze. Snapping back to her senses, Nicole led Luciana into the tower, their steps heavy and slow. Luciana stared absent-mindedly out the window toward the temple where Oresio was, but what caught her eye was a faint crimson glow. What was that light? Look over there, Nicole. Do you think something happened to His Highness? Nicole tried to reassure her. Maybe, or it could just be the light reflecting off the stone walls. Let's hurry, Lady Luciana. We often see things like this when it rains. Don't overthink it. At the same time, Gino rushed to Oresio's temple at full speed, but the sight of blood everywhere instantly deepened his panic. Your Highness, Prince Oresio, where are you? He angrily grabbed one of the attendants collapsed in a pool of blood. You idiots, have you all really lost consciousness? Where did His Highness go? Suddenly Gino froze. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a familiar edge of fabric. Focusing on it, he saw the person lying ahead in the blood. It was Oresio himself. He immediately rushed over. A healing circle of light formed around Oresio in an instant. Oresio's eyelashes trembled as he slowly opened his eyes, his dark pupils reflecting the figure before him. It's you, Gino. Oresio then sat up slowly, looking dazed. Gino continued channeling his divine power as he spoke urgently. Your Highness, if this continues, you'll only end up being manipulated by the Queen. You must go see the first prince immediately. He's a pure-blooded prince. He can resolve this. But Oresio, his whole being steeped in grief and helplessness, replied quietly, even if I go to him, nothing will change. Today wasn't a judgment. Yet I killed them all without hesitation. So when you get the chance, you must kill me. I'm a murderer. Watching Oresio drown in pain and self-blame, Gino broke down in tears. You're not a murderer. You are the only all-powerful judge of Bovius. Please, go see your brother, Sardis. Hearing this, Oresio gave a helpless smile. Light began to glow across his face, and in the next instant he vanished. Only Gino was left behind, sobbing softly. Why does the Queen treat His Highness like this? All he ever wanted was a peaceful life. Elsewhere, Luciana looked at the rain growing heavier beyond the magic barrier and said with concern, Nicole, are you still going home? It's already very late. Nicole was holding a cup of hot tea as she walked toward Luciana. The rain is pouring. Lord Gino told me to stay here until it stops. Hearing this, Luciana asked softly, what if His Highness comes to visit us? I know you're afraid of him. Nicole showed no sign of panic at all. His Highness won't be coming for a while. Luciana froze for a moment, then said blankly, I understand. Yet the image of that incomparably handsome face surfaced in her mind. So, Prince Oresio won't come to see me for now.